Alright, let's get you going on semester review this fall 2017, part 4. This will be the final review video. Thank goodness. Alright, anyways, let's go and get started. Alrighty, shall we? We shall. So, we're starting at problem number 29, and this is like the only 29, so thank goodness I didn't do a bunch of those. And you got to solve each equation by taking the square root. So, what you got to do first? You got to get the x squared isolated. So kind of keep this in mind. When you're solving by square roots, first off, keep in mind there is no x. So you can't have an x like there. Like say you can't have 2x squared plus x plus 11x minus 4x minus anything x or plus anything x, okay? Solve for x squared. So you add 5, you're going to divide by 2, and then the last thing you're going to do is take the square root. Now don't forget, when you take the square root, you get plus and minus. If it comes out even, like taking the square root of 64, that's great. Then you will put plus and minus 8. I could give you something like plus and minus square root of 8 just to see how many of y'all forget that little rule. How plus and minus, or just 8, plus and minus 8i, so on and so forth. So kind of keep in mind there's different ways I can trick you. Alright, so let's look at the next one. Number 30, I'm going to add 1 and then divide by 3. And I will end up with, divide by 6. I have no clue why I said divide by 3. And then I will end up with negative 11. Now remember, when you take the square root of negative 11, okay, yeah, you get the plus and minus, and you've got the square root of 11. But keep in mind, the negative, every single time I have a negative, I will put I. Do not forget the I. And only if there is a negative inside the square root. Alright, so now let's look at, say, factoring. Okay. So with factoring, you want to make sure you can put that little table, plus plus, it means plus plus, minus means minus minus. You can put that little table into your note sheet, note card, whatever. Don't forget, add, subtract, larger number should go in the first parentheses. So here, x squared minus 16x is x minus minus. I'm looking for two numbers that multiply to give me 63, add up to 16. So really, like 1 and 63, 3 and 21, I'm dividing. 63 divided by 3 is 21. 63 divided by 4 doesn't work. By 5 doesn't work. By 6 doesn't work. 7 goes into it 9 times. And 7 plus 9 is 16. So there you go for factoring. Now, I don't have factoring on the test, but I do have solving by factoring. Now, here's the thing. I'll let this one play through. Notice that I said 2 times 56 is 112. Here's the thing. Some of the problems I have set up for solving can be done by square roots, by factoring, by completing the square, or by quadratic equation. In theory, all of them can be done by the quadratic equation. It's just that they'll come out like cleaner or easier, I think, with the square roots or complete, like whichever method you go through. Now, keep in mind, for completing the square or factoring, you're looking for two numbers that multiply or add, subtract to, give you that number. If you're short on time, go to quadratic formula, and you should be able to find the two answers either way. Anyways, let's look at completing the square. Solving by factoring. So solving by factoring, again, I'm looking for two numbers that multiply to 42, add up to 13. Just keep in mind that whatever answer you get in the parentheses will be the opposite for the final answer. So here I get 7 and 6, so it's going to be negative 7 and negative 6. Most of the completing the square and factoring ones do not have a number in front of the x squared, so kind of keep that in mind. Here you can see two numbers that multiply to give me 60, negative 60, and would subtract to give me an 11, which would be 15 and 4. I'll put those in there, and notice how the signs will again change. So keep in mind, whatever answer you get in parentheses when you're factoring, and set it equal to 0, the signs will change. Now let's look at completing the square. Don't forget, you divide by 2, and then you square the number. Okay, so don't forget, divide by 2, that answer goes in parentheses, and then square the number. Not that hard. Anyways, solving by completing the square. You make sure that the x's are by themselves, so I'm going to move the 75 over to the other side. That gives me x squared minus 16x equals negative 75. And then I'm going to divide by 2. Negative 16 divided by 2 is negative 8. Negative 8 squared is going to be positive 64. So negative 75 plus 64 will give me negative 11. Take the square root of that, and that will give me plus or minus I squared root of 11. So your final step, to make sure, again, keep in mind that that negative 8 is in parentheses, or I'm sorry, it's going to move to the other side, so it will become positive 8. Because I will guarantee you, I will have an answer that will say 8 plus and minus I squared of 11, and I'll have an answer that says negative 8 plus and minus I squared of 11. And I probably would have one that says 8 plus and minus squared of 11, just to see how many of y'all forget the I. Okay, so kind of keep those in mind, those little things that I like to do to not necessarily trip y'all up, but to make y'all, realize y'all need to pay attention sometimes. Alright, let's see here. Next problem is number 38. X squared plus 20x. I already moved the 72 over to the other side, right? Yes. Notice that minus 72 became positive 72. Okay, so I'm going to divide 20 by 2, get 10. 10 plus 10 squared is 100. And I'm going to add that 72, and that will give me 172. So I got x equals plus and minus square root of 172. Move the 10 over. Get x equals negative 10 plus and minus square root of 172. Now, even if you don't know how to simplify this here, at this point, I would tell you, you would at least be at a 50-50 chance. I mean, worst comes to worst, you're at a 50-50 chance based on multiple choice. So now I got to make sure you maybe you can simplify. I don't think I have any that you need to simplify on the exam, but I am not going to be positive on that. Notice that a pair of 2's went on the outside. I have a 43 left over. That stayed inside. All right, so let's look at don't forget the quadratic formula. If ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0, then you have negative b plus or minus b squared, b squared minus 4 times a times c, all of that over 2 times a. So now I'm going to do number 39. Again, you want to make sure it's equal to 0 first. Then you can identify a, b, and c. Plug them into the formula. Notice how I got this all set up. I always like to write them the numbers first, or the setups first, then start putting in the numbers. So b, 11, 11, 5, 13, and 5. Now, that would give me negative 11 plus and minus 11 squared minus 4 times 5 times 13 is negative 139 over 10, which would give me basically negative 11 plus or minus I squared of 139 over 10. Some of y'all's mistakes, again, were like forgetting to put negative 11, you would have put positive 11. Forgetting the I, you just drop it off, stuff like that. So might kind of be careful on things like that. I do believe that whatever answer choice you have on something like that, it doesn't have to be worried about being simplified because it was a prime number, which is kind of weird when you pick random numbers. Anyways, here on this one, we want to make sure that we move the 31 over and make sure it's equal to 0. That's something that a lot of y'all forgot to do on the test when we tested over this previously. And I will guarantee you the answer, like if you say A is 1, B is 17, and C is 11, C is 14, it's hard for me to see here, I will have that answer there as well as if C is negative 17. So that's going to be kind of one of your distractor numbers. So be careful. So here I'm plugging in the numbers, go through the whole routine, and again, keep in mind that this part right here, I just typed this part in the calculator. 17 squared minus 4 times 1 times negative 17. Get an answer and put that under the square root, which is 357. That can't be simplified, so there I go. I'm done. So these are some of the rules that I would do to make sure I have this set up. That's really about it. I decided that to omit number 41 on the test because my questions were I already had enough questions for the semester exam that I felt like I didn't need to have any questions like number 41 on the test. As much as I do think that those are actually kind of important questions, it's just that it would have been much longer. And I think where we're at right now, it's long enough. Anyways, I just want to say thank y'all. Y'all have been really great classes. I usually don't get a chance to say this to y'all because I don't see y'all afterwards the next day, or I don't see y'all after the test. And some of y'all may have to come for a retest, although technically I hope none of y'all have to because you're all going to do so well on the test, so on and so forth. But I just want to say thank y'all. Keep in mind, y'all been an awesome class. Even some of you who think, who don't necessarily maybe listen or try to do your best, but I still, for the most part, y'all have been like really awesome. And so, to give y'all a chance, here's another thing. I'll throw in a secret phrase. You must write it on the answer document of your test. You cannot ask me about it again, but just something to say, maybe give y'all a new hope. before, say, The Empire Strikes Back. But, as we return to the Jedi, and, ignore any Phantom Menaces. Don't worry about anything about attacking the clones, or any Revenge of the Sith. Because, the Force must awaken in all of us, even though we may be down to one last Jedi. But I would like to say, may the Force be with you always. So that is your phrase for the test. May the Force be with you always. Thank you so much, and y'all take care.